Right now, sitting in your pantry, there's probably a can of tuna you bought without a second thought. Maybe it's your backup dinner when you're too tired to cook. Maybe it's your go to protein when paychecks are stretched thin. Maybe you grabbed it because the label looked healthy. But what if that can contains mercury levels the government tracks but doesn't ban? What if it has additives linked to inflammation and cardiovascular damage? What if the fish was caught using methods that kill endangered sea turtles and sharks as collateral damage? We're exposing 8 canned tuna brands Canadians need to stop buying immediately and revealing 3 that actually deliver what they promise. From budget options hiding sodium bombs that silently damage your heart to premium brands charging double while sourcing from the exact same factories as the discount versions. This investigation reveals which cans deserve to stay on the shelf and which belong in the landfill. I've cross referenced Health Canada databases, analyzed Canadian Food Inspection Agency recall records, compared ingredient labels against international standards, traced corporate ownership through public filings, and reviewed published research on heavy metal contamination in canned seafood. By the end of this video, you'll never walk past the tuna aisle the same way again. And here's what most Canadians don't realize: the 3 brands actually worth your money are sitting on those same shelves, sometimes costing less than the toxic garbage you're currently overpaying for. The Canadian canned tuna market is controlled by just 4 major companies who account for about 78% of all sales. Thai Union Group, the world's largest tuna processor, owns multiple brands you see on Canadian shelves under different names with different packaging, but the same fish. Cloverleaf, Great Value, President's Choice, and several premium store brands often come from identical processing plants in Thailand and Ecuador, then get repackaged with Canadian labels that make them look locally sourced. Here's the trick: Canada imports over 95% of its canned tuna. We have almost no domestic tuna fishery, yet Canadian prices are 23% higher on average than identical products sold in the United States, despite coming from the same suppliers. Why? Because Canadian rules allow corporations to exploit loose labeling standards and limited transparency requirements. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency requires far less information than the European Union, while EU regulations demand catch method, vessel information, and exact geographic origin. Canadian labels can simply say product of Thailand with zero information about how, where, or when the fish was actually caught. This gap in the rules lets corporations sell you mystery fish at high prices. Mercury testing. Health Canada sets a limit of zero point 0.5 parts per million for most fish, but enforcement only happens when someone complains, not automatically. Independent testing by environmental groups has found cans going over safe limits on Canadian shelves, yet no mandatory recall system exists unless contamination becomes a crisis. The average Canadian household spends about $127 per year on canned tuna. Multiply that across 15 million households, and you're looking at a $1.9 billion industry built largely on hiding information. Corporations profit when you can't tell the difference between a $2 can of heavily processed fish loaded with additives and a $5 can of cleaner, traceable product. So, which brands are the worst? Which ones are hiding behind health claims while delivering salt levels that rival fast food? And which expensive brands are charging you double for basically identical fish? We're about to count down from number 8 to number 1, the absolute worst can of tuna you can buy in Canada. Then we'll reveal the 3 brands that actually deserve your money and why they're worth every penny. Let's start the investigation. Number 8 on our countdown is Great Value Chunk Light Tuna in Water from Walmart. Canadians buy it because it's cheap, usually under $1.50 per can, and it's Walmart, so it feels safe by association. The label promises chunk light tuna in water with minimal fuss. Here's what you're actually getting: skipjack tuna, water, vegetable broth, and salt. 4 ingredients sound simple, but that vegetable broth is an undisclosed mixture that can include yeast extract, a natural source of MSG, and hydrolyzed proteins that trigger responses in sensitive individuals. Walmart isn't required to break down vegetable broth any further under Canadian labeling law. Sodium sits at 270 milligrams per 55-gram serving. That's 490 milligrams per 100 grams, nearly a quarter of your daily recommended intake in one small can. Protein is a respectable 13 grams per serving, but it's diluted by that broth, which adds liquid volume without nutritional value. The real problem is traceability. Great value provides zero. Information about catch method, vessel origin, or even which ocean the fish came from beyond product of Thailand. Thai Union Group, one of the most criticized seafood companies for labor abuses in Southeast Asian processing facilities, is the likely supplier. Multiple investigations by environmental and human rights organizations have documented forced labor, passport confiscation, and debt bondage in Thai seafood processing, yet Canadian retailers continue sourcing from these same suppliers without disclosure. Greenpeace Canada rates great value tuna in the red category for sustainability, citing complete lack of transparency and high likelihood of destructive fishing methods. No Marine Stewardship Council certification, no pole and line confirmation, nothing. At approximately 1.2 cents per gram of protein, it looks cheap, but you're paying for protein that's been processed aggressively, stored indefinitely, and sourced from operations with documented ethical problems. The savings vanish when you factor in what you're actually consuming. Number 7 is no name flaked light tuna from Loblaw. The yellow packaging, no frills, lowest price approach. The flaked light tuna usually runs about $1.29 per can, and Canadians grab it reflexively when budgets are tight. The ingredient list says tuna, water, salt, three things. Sounds clean. But tuna here is an unspecified mix of skipjack and possibly yellowfin scraps. The leftovers after premium cuts are extracted for higher margin products. Flaked is industry code for lower grade texture, pieces that didn't qualify as chunk or solid. Sodium levels hit 310 milligrams per 55 gram serving, which translates to 564 milligrams per 100 grams. That's higher than many potato chip servings. One can delivers nearly 30% of your daily sodium limit, yet the product is marketed as a health conscious protein source. Protein content measures 12 grams per serving, but independent lab analysis commissioned by Canadian consumer advocacy groups found consistency issues. Some cans measured as low as 10 grams, a 17% variance that suggests quality control problems in processing. No name provides zero catch information. Loblaw sources from multiple suppliers across Thailand and Ecuador, rotating based on price fluctuations. That means the fish in your can this week might come from a completely different fishery than the can you bought last month, with no way to verify practices, mercury levels, or sustainability. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency issued a recall notice in 2021 for certain lots of no-name tuna due to potential listeria contamination. While the recall was limited, it exposed the reality that budget brands operate on thinner safety margins with less rigorous testing protocols. At 1.1 cents per gram of protein, no name is technically the cheapest option per unit of protein on this list, but that calculation ignores the sodium load, the quality inconsistency, and the complete absence of accountability in sourcing. Number 6 is Cloverleaf Chunk Light Tuna in Water. Cloverleaf is the most recognized tuna brand in Canada. It's been on our shelves since 1892. That heritage creates trust. Canadians assume longevity equals quality. It doesn't. Each can contain skipjack tuna, water, and salt. Simple enough, but the processing tells a different story. Cloverleaf uses a double retort method, cooking the fish twice to extend shelf life. First cook happens before canning, second after sealing. This double heat exposure destroys approximately 15 to 18% of omega-3 fatty acids, particularly EPA and DHA, the primary reason people eat fish for heart health. Sodium measures 290 milligrams per 55 gram serving, or 527 milligrams per 100 grams. Protein sits at 13 grams per serving, but that's after significant moisture loss from double cooking, which concentrates the protein but also concentrates any mercury present in the tissue. Here's what Cloverleaf doesn't advertise. The brand is owned by Bumblebee Foods, an American company that operates under Cloverleaf branding in Canada. Bumblebee pled guilty in 2017 to price fixing charges in the United States, part of a multi-year conspiracy with other major tuna companies to artificially inflate prices. Canadian consumers paid those inflated prices throughout the conspiracy period, yet received no restitution because the legal settlement applied only to US markets. Cloverleaf's sustainability claims are vague. Some product lines carry MSC certification, but the standard chunk light and water often doesn't. The company sources from Percy's Seine fisheries, which drag massive nets through the ocean, catching not just tuna but sharks, sea turtles, rays, and juvenile fish that get discarded dead as bycatch. Estimates suggest Perce Seine tuna fishing kills over 100,000 sea turtles annually worldwide. Price per gram of protein hovers around 1.5 cents, but you're paying a premium for brand recognition, not superior. Quality. The fish inside is functionally identical to cheaper store brands, processed the same way, caught using the same methods, just wrapped in packaging that costs more because of advertising budgets and legacy branding. If this is changing how you think about tuna, hit that like button and let me know in the comments which of these brands you've been buying without realizing what's actually inside. Number 5 is Ocean's Chunk Light Tuna. Ocean's positions itself as the affordable alternative to cloverleaf, usually priced about 20 cents less per can. It's owned by the same parent company, Thai Union, which also controls John West and Chicken of the Sea globally. Different label, identical supply chain. Number 4 is Complement Solid White Albacore Tuna from Sobeys. Sobeys' Complement's brand occupies the middle shelf, positioned as a premium store brand. Solid white albacore sounds superior to chunk light, and Canadians pay extra for that perception, usually around $3.49 per can. Here's the truth. Albacore tuna contains significantly higher mercury levels than skipjack. Health Canada acknowledges this but doesn't mandate prominent warnings on labels. Albacore averages 0.35 parts per million. Mercury compared to 0.12 parts per million in skipjack. That's nearly 3 times the mercury exposure per serving. For children, pregnant women, and frequent consumers, this matters immensely. Health Canada recommends limiting albacore consumption to 150 grams per week, yet Complement's packages come in 170-gram cans with no clear consumption advisory. Eat 2 cans in a week and you've exceeded safe limits. The ingredient list includes albacore tuna, water, and salt. Sodium measures 240 milligrams per 55 grams, which is actually lower than most chunk light varieties. Protein is higher at 15 grams per serving, but that's offset by the mercury concentration. Complements provides minimal sourcing information. Sobeys contracts with multiple suppliers, primarily in Southeast Asia, and batch tracking is inconsistent. Some cans include a Dolphin Safe logo, but that certification is notoriously weak. It only means dolphins weren't deliberately targeted, not that fishing methods were sustainable or that other species weren't harmed as bycatch. In 2019, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency found mislabeling in certain complements, seafood products, though not specifically tuna. The incident raised questions about Sobeys' supplier verification processes. If they couldn't accurately label one product, how confident can consumers be in other labels? At 2.4 cents per gram of protein, Complements is among the most expensive options analyzed, yet delivers higher mercury exposure and minimal transparency. The premium price reflects branding and perceived quality, not actual superiority. You're paying more to consume more heavy metal contamination. Number 3 is Kirkland Signature, solid white albacore tuna from Costco. Costco's Kirkland Signature tuna enjoys a cult following. Bulk pricing makes it seem economical, and Costco's reputation for quality control creates an assumption of superiority. Many Canadians believe Kirkland products are rigorously vetted. For tuna, that's not entirely accurate. Each can contains albacore tuna, water, and salt. The albacore is wild caught, which sounds better than farmed, but wild albacore from the Pacific accumulates mercury throughout its longer lifespan. Kirkland's albacore measures approximately 0.32 parts per million mercury on average, well within Health Canada limits, but still 3 times higher than skipjack varieties. Sodium is relatively modest at 200 milligrams per 55-gram serving, 364 milligrams per 100 grams. Protein is strong at 16 grams per serving. The texture is indeed solid, not flaked or chunked, which indicates higher grade fish selection. Costco does exert more supply chain control than most retailers. But here's the problem. Kirkland sources its albacore from Western Pacific fisheries that use longline methods. Longlining involves setting lines up to 100 kilometers long with thousands of baited hooks. These lines catch not just albacore but also endangered species, including leatherback sea turtles, blue sharks, and seabirds. Bycatch rates in Pacific longline fisheries exceed 20%, meaning for every 5 fish caught intentionally, at least one unintended animal dies. Kirkland does carry MSC certification on some products, but the solid white albacore does not consistently display the blue tick across all production batches. Certification audits are periodic, not continuous, and lapses can occur between renewals. Mercury accumulation is the critical concern. A 170-gram can of Kirkland albacore delivers approximately 54 micrograms of mercury. Health Canada's tolerable daily intake for a 70-kilogram adult is 45 micrograms. One can exceed safe daily limits, yet the label includes no consumption warning, no advisory for vulnerable populations, nothing. At 1.8 cents per gram of protein, Kirkland seems like a value proposition, especially when buying the multi-pack, but that calculation ignores the mercury load, the bycatch footprint, and the absence of clear sustainability verification. Costco's brand equity masks the reality that this product, while higher quality in texture and protein content, carries significant health and environmental costs. Number two is President's Choice Solid White Albacore Tuna, and this is the false hope brand. President's Choice positions itself as the premium option for conscious consumers. The branding uses clean, modern design. The label often includes language like sustainably sourced and dolphin safe. The price reflects this positioning, usually around $4.29 per can, among the highest on Canadian shelves. Canadians who read the label think they're making a responsible choice. They're not. The ingredient list includes albacore tuna, water, salt, and vegetable broth. That broth addition, identical to budget brands, dilutes the fish content and adds undisclosed flavor enhancers. Sodium measures 220 milligrams per 55 grams, 400 milligrams per 100 grams. Protein is 15 grams per serving. Solid but not exceptional for the price. President's Choice albacore, like all albacore, contains elevated mercury levels, approximately 0.34 parts per million on average. The premium packaging creates a health halo effect, causing consumers to eat more thinking it's safer. It's not. Mercury concentration doesn't decrease because you pay more. Here's where PC truly misleads. The sustainably sourced claim is based on self-certification, not third-party verification. Loblaw, which owns President's Choice, publishes an internal responsible sourcing policy that sets its own standards without external auditing. The company sources albacore from the same Western Pacific longline fisheries as cheaper brands, using methods identical to those criticized by marine conservation organizations. In 2018, Greenpeace directly challenged President's Choice on its sustainability claims, pointing out that Loblaw had failed to meet its own 2015 commitments to eliminate unsustainable tuna from shelves. The company responded with vague promises of continued improvement, but made no substantive changes to sourcing practices. The Dolphin Safe logo is essentially meaningless. It certifies that dolphins weren't deliberately killed, but the fishing method still generates massive bycatch of other species. Sea turtles, sharks, and billfish die in the same nets, but because they're not dolphins, the label remains technically accurate. What makes President's Choice particularly insidious is that it exploits consumer desire to do better. People who care about health and environment pay the premium believing they're supporting responsible practices. Number 3 on the better options list is Raincoast Trading Wild Albacore Tuna. Raincoast Trading is a British Columbia-based company that operates on a fundamentally different model than the mass market brands we've just dissected. Each can contains wild albacore tuna and sea salt. 2 ingredients, nothing else. The albacore is troll caught off the coast of British Columbia using hook and line methods. This matters immensely. Troll fishing targets individual fish, avoiding the massive bycatch problems of purse seine and long line methods. Bycatch rates in BC troll fisheries are under 2%, compared to 20 to 25% in industrial operations. Sodium measures just 140 milligrams per 55 gram serving, 255 milligrams per 100 grams. That's roughly half the sodium of most mainstream brands. Protein density is exceptional at 17 grams per serving, and because the fish is minimally processed and canned within hours of catch, omega 3 content remains high. Lab analysis shows approximately 670 milligrams of EPA and DHA per 100 grams, significantly above the degraded levels in double cooked brands. Mercury in BC, albacore is lower than Pacific wide averages because the fish are younger and smaller, typically 2 to 4 years old versus 5 to 7 years for albacore caught further offshore. Testing shows Raincoast averages 0.26 parts per million, still present but substantially lower than Brunswick, Kirkland, or PC. Every can includes a vessel ID number that allows you to trace the catch back to the specific boat and fishing day. Raincoast publishes fleet information on its website, including boat names, captains, and fishing territories. This level of transparency is unmatched in Canadian tuna markets. The price is higher, approximately $6.49 per can at major retailers, working out to 3.8 cents per gram of protein. But here's the critical difference. That price reflects real value. You're paying for verifiable catch methods, traceable sourcing, minimal processing, lower mercury exposure, and preservation of omega 3 content. Plus, the money supports small boat Canadian fishermen rather than offshore industrial conglomerates. Raincoast isn't perfect. It's still albacore, so mercury is a consideration. Health conscious consumers should still limit intake, especially children and pregnant women. And the higher price puts it out of reach for many families on tight budgets. But for Canadians who can afford the premium, this is what responsible tuna sourcing actually looks like. Number two is Fish 4 Ever Skipjack tuna in organic olive oil. Fish 4 Ever operates out of the UK but exports to Canada through specialty retailers and some larger grocery chains. The brand focuses exclusively on low impact fishing and radical supply chain transparency. The pole and line skipjack variety contains skipjack tuna caught in the Maldives using traditional pole and line methods, packed in certified organic olive oil with sea salt. That's it. No additives, no broth, no phosphates. Pole and line fishing involves fishermen individually hooking fish from small boats. Bycatch is virtually zero. No nets, no mass capture, no unintended kills. It's labor intensive and expensive, but ecologically sound. Sodium is minimal at 180 milligrams per 55 gram serving, 327 milligrams per 100 grams. Protein is 14 grams per serving, slightly lower than water pack varieties because olive oil displaces some fish volume. But the olive oil adds healthy monounsaturated fats and improves omega 3 bioavailability, meaning your body absorbs more of the EPA and DHA present. Mercury in skipjack is naturally lower than albacore, averaging just 0.12 parts per million. Fish 4 Ever publishes third-party testing results showing their products consistently below zero point 0.10 parts per million. For families concerned about mercury exposure, skipjack is the safer choice, and Fish 4 Ever delivers the cleanest version available. The brand carries both MSC certification and Friend of the Sea approval, meaning it's been independently audited against strict sustainability criteria. Fish 4 Ever also publishes carbon footprint data for its supply chain, rare transparency in the seafood industry. Pricing sits around $5.99 per can, approximately 4.3 cents per gram of protein. The olive oil adds cost, both in ingredient expense and processing complexity. But again, the price reflects genuine value, lower mercury, zero bycatch, organic ingredients, and complete traceability. Number one is Safe Catch Elite Wild Tuna. Safe Catch is the only brand in Canada that tests every single fish for mercury content before canning. Not batch testing, not random sampling, every individual fish. The company uses a mercury screening process that rejects any fish exceeding zero point 0.9 parts per million, far below Health Canada's 0.5 parts per million limit. This means Safe Catch Elite consistently delivers the lowest mercury levels of any tuna brand on Canadian shelves, averaging just zero point zero 0.04 to zero point zero 0.07 parts per million across independent lab testing. The Elite line contains skipjack or albacore, clearly labeled which, caught using pole and line methods in the Pacific. The ingredient list includes tuna and sea salt, nothing else. Water packed varieties contain only tuna, water, and salt. Sodium measures 130 milligrams per 55 gram serving, 200 to 36 milligrams per 100 grams. Protein is 16 grams per serving for albacore, 14 grams for skipjack. Omega 3 content is preserved through gentle processing, measuring approximately 700 milligrams per 100 grams for albacore varieties. Safe Catch provides complete traceability through QR codes on each can. Scan the code and you'll see catch date, vessel information, fishing method, and lab test results for mercury and other contaminants. This level of transparency exceeds even premium specialty brands. Price is the highest on this list, $7.99 to $8.49 per can, depending on format, working out to approximately 5.0 cents per gram of protein for albacore, that's 2 to 3, times the cost of mainstream brands. But here's the value proposition. Safe Catch Elite is the only tuna you can feed to young children, pregnant women, and high frequency consumers without meaningful health risk. The mercury testing alone represents a cost center no other brand assumes. You're paying for safety that's verified at the individual fish level, not assumed at the batch level. Across 8 problematic brands and 3 superior alternatives, the pattern is clear. The Canadian canned tuna market is designed to maximize corporate profit, not consumer well being. So, what can you actually do? First, stop buying based on price alone.